Welcome. This is All Things Equal, and I'm Holly Burrow. This podcast is dedicated to the ESOs who make entrepreneurship support possible. On my journey of building Equal, which we've fondly begun calling the BSO for ESOs, I've had the honor of hosting conversations with amazing humans doing impactful work across the globe. Somewhere on that journey, I realized that everyone that does this work needs to hear the wild, wonderful, and intricate stories that I was hearing. That's why we're here. I want to shine a light on the people building the info programs and support systems that help founders thrive. We'll dig into what's working, what's not, and the lessons learned from the front lines of entrepreneurial support. If you're an ESO, this show is for you because your work powers the future of entrepreneurship, and we are so here for it. Hi everyone, and we are here today with Jamilah. So I will let Jamilah introduce herself and her work to us.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Holly. It's really great to fellowship with you and everyone that's listening. My name is Jamilah Corbitt. I am part of the team at Established. And if I can give a little bit of background about Established, if that's okay. To put it simply, we're a consultancy. So we create a wide variety of solutions for our clients, both in the federal and in the private sectors. So we're the team behind some of the huge events you may or may not have heard of, like the SBA Innovation Ecosystem Summit, America's Seed Fund Week, and others.
Little projects, baby projects.
Just a little bit. So we also help our federal partners and our ESOs do network and ecosystem development. That means helping create programs, activities, and initiatives that drive deal flow and economic growth. This can take the form of road shows, pitch competitions, private roundtables, and other media events. We can dive into it a little bit later, but most recently we just launched the Established Network, which is an initiative that I'm heading up, and so that bridges our firm's consultancy, which is Established, and our venture arm, which is Established Ventures, and our signature program, which is Startup of the Year program. And so our goal is to bring all of the stakeholders together under one umbrella. So we launched this digital hub for everyone to mix, mingle, and converse. I have a background in branding, marketing, communications, community building, and I had my own digital agency for 7 years before exiting. And now I'm on the other side of things where I get to build cool stuff and work with some even cooler people. So again, thank you so much for having me today. And thank you all for listening if you're listening to this.
I love it. And I love it when I get to meet other people that have transitioned. I call it to the other side of the table because it brings a different perspective if you've actually stood in the shoes of being an entrepreneur. And so I love that there are enough of us out here floating around that have come to the other side of the table that want to build solutions to help and places to find community. So tell me a little bit about what inspired you to do the Established Network, because I jumped right in. I'm all in on that game.
Yeah. So first of all, we have at Established, we've created so many things, so many awesome things, tools, programs for entrepreneurs over the years. And we had our running flagship program, which is the Startup of the Year program, where we hosted summits every single year. We've hosted, I think, 9, don't quote me on this, 9 or 10. 9. I think we're planning our 10th, but we've hosted 9 summits over the years, and including before Established, our founders and hosted entrepreneurial events. It was called Tech Cocktail, which they then sold. But we've been doing this, so we're true to this. We're not new to this. And one of my work dealing with our federal clients, it was ecosystem development. And I was like, you know what, this is kind of cool. Why aren't we doing this for ourselves? What are we doing here? And I don't know if it was just a bandwidth issue, team resources. It just wasn't a priority. So I was like, hey, can we build something that integrates everything that we're doing and help it, number one, help create a pipeline for new startups, provide resources for other ESOs. It's a great way to, number one, build our credibility, our expertise, and just positions us as a thought leader, which we're already doing the work. We just have to showcase what we're doing. So enter Established Network. The name was workshopped. We landed on Established Network, but it was something else before. But we landed on Established Network, where we're building this hub where everyone can mix and mingle. And in addition to that, we're building some programming under that. So for our different stakeholder groups, which are our main stakeholder groups are the ESOs, the Entrepreneur Support Organizations, ESOs. I don't know if people know the acronym, so I gotta get my mind out of this acronym soup that
We're
I'm.
in the space of all the acronyms, I know.
Yeah, okay, cool. So our main stakeholder group, ESOs, investors, corporate partners, and also the startups themselves. So what can we build that brings all of these people together, and also what programming can we create that tailors that's specifically tailored for these stakeholder groups? And so that's what we're in the middle now. So we're currently working on specific spaces, initiatives, and programs for that stakeholder group, and we're building it out. I don't want to give away too much before it launches, but we are actively building that out, and so you'll see some things roll out depending on when you hear this podcast over the next several months. But it matters to me. Established Network matters to me. It's kind of like the baby that I get to babysit every day, because community matters to me. Access to tools, resource, and networks matter to me. And I pitched this idea, this idea of this type of community months ago. This was months ago, because again, we were building community specifically for our clients, and I wanted us to have something for ourselves. So that's where the idea for Established Network came along, and that's why I have the privilege of kind of leading it and stewarding it in the right direction.
I love that, because I feel like the community piece, I mean, I think most of the people in our space of practice, we're very aware of like the community that the entrepreneurs need, and we're all very intentional about thinking about it and trying to find solutions for it. But I love that you've expanded that to the rest of the community of service, because I will say, like, the first few times that I was able to join some of the events that are more tailored for the ESOs and for ecosystem building, I was like, oh my God, my people, like, I didn't know they existed, because I had been working like in my silo of service,
Yeah.
trying to make sure that we were building the right solutions for entrepreneurs, but I kind of forgot about us. So I love that that's a piece of that thought process for you. So I'm really curious to understand, like, as far as community and barriers, what are some of the things that you guys have been able to discover and put in place and help establish for breaking down the barriers to access to things, to access to communities, access to capital, all the things that are all of our buzzwords all the time? What have you discovered in your journey of doing that work?
Yeah, I think what the biggest thing that I've discovered is the lack of awareness that surrounds the access to capital, or that surrounds the resources that's available to entrepreneurs. Because if you're not in the sometimes when you're not in the space, you don't know what's happening in the space. You don't know the resources, the tools, the people you need to connect with that are in the space. You just don't know. So one of the barriers that we've tried to bring down, or that we've seen and trying to bring down, is the awareness piece. So how can we put information in front of groups of people that wouldn't otherwise access this information? Like, you're just not part of the quote unquote right networks. You just don't have the access to the resources. So how do we reach those people? And again, social media is a great tool. The World Wide Web, it's brought a lot of people together. And not only how do we connect with those people, but how do we create or use language that's also accessible and inclusive? Because again, I have to stop myself of doing the alphabet soup, like, oh, ESO, using all these acronyms without giving the meaning to it, like SBIR, STTR. What is that? What
What
exactly
does
does
that
that mean?
mean? If you've never heard it before, am I supposed to guess? Like,
Yeah, and I remember when I first started working in government contracting, and I just remember my first couple weeks. I'm like, can you please define what is this acronym? And
a little
it's
more
this
knowledge.
most simple acronym, and I'm like, what does it mean? And even now, and they're always coming up with new acronyms. Even now, I'm still having to ask, okay, what does this acronym mean? So again, with that awareness, having the awareness of what language are we using? How are we reaching people who would otherwise not be able to access these resources or information?
I love that, because I try to approach it from a similar vantage point, but doubling down on the creating a space where it's safe to ask questions. Because
Huge.
You feel comfortable in your environment saying, what does that mean? But what if you're a founder speaking to an investor for the first time and they use a word that you don't know what it means?
Yeah.
That you don't feel empowered in that moment to ask those questions. So I think that's been something that we've always kind of kept as a top priority. Like, we make it okay to ask questions, we welcome questions. And like, I love to tell this story because it illustrates it so beautifully. Is I have this friend, she was a female founder, beauty business, all the things that traditional investors are a little bit hesitant of.
Yeah.
And so she finally gets this opportunity to sit down with an amazing investor, and she is, I mean, like cold sweat level freaked out. Like, and like her profit margins are like 80%. Like, there is no reason you wouldn't want to throw money at this business
Yeah.
because all the metrics were
Outrageous.
beautiful. I mean, it was beautiful. But she's super nervous, and trying to get her to a place of confidence was really difficult because she was feeling super intimidated because she was going to be sitting at a board table with a bunch of investors that she just was totally freaked out about. And so I told her, I was like, well, you can text me while you're in the meeting. Like, if somebody, I was like, I will keep my phone right in front of me. I will hold the time on my calendar. I will make myself available to you. If something gets said that you don't understand, just text me.
Hmm.
And she did. Like, she texted me probably 4 or 5 times throughout that meeting. And most of it, honestly, like, to speak to the acronym thing, like, most of it was acronym. She's like, oh, what does this mean? Oh my God, what does this mean? But I loved, like, I walked away from that feeling super proud that I had created an environment where she felt safe enough to say, I don't know, please help. And so I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because again, if you're a first-time founder, especially if a first-time tech founder, and your only pathway, well, your biggest pathway to growing and scaling is the VC path or the investor path because you need it to scale. It's hard. It's very intimidating to be in those rooms and have the confidence to speak the language.
Yes.
It's even more, I'm gonna put this out there. I don't know how controversial this is gonna be. It's even more challenging if you are a black or brown founder, first time
Hmm.
founder. And we're not even gonna get to the whole women piece. That
That's a whole, yeah, there's a lot of check
another thing.
boxes there.
Yeah, 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 yeah. You have a lot. The minor. If you're a minority, it's very difficult. It's so difficult because sometimes they're and I hate that this happens. There are these biases where if you don't know this acronym or this language, if you can't speak the language, they'll equate that to, oh, you don't
Yes.
know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're doing. But that is not the case at all. I know exactly what I'm doing. I just don't know what this term means.
But and I do think it's so I think there's something there, and I haven't figured out quite how to speak to it eloquently yet, but there's something for creating those spaces where founders feel like it's okay to be vulnerable enough, and that vulnerability teaches them to be strong enough to just ask the question
Yeah,
and
yeah.
to figure out how to ask the question in an eloquent way so they don't create that scenario where they are worried about that bias being created. Like, it's a very delicate journey, but I do think it's really important that we kind of call that out as a learning process that not every founder actually has to learn. It's only a handful of types of founders that need that unique knowledge set. So to double click into that a little bit, do you feel like we are teaching founders the right business skill sets, or are we just kind of hanging out in outdated theory, or what are your thoughts there?
I feel like that's a loaded question because I want to say yes and no. Yeah, yes, I think that I think we are. I think there's a body of knowledge that will stand the test of time that just holds true for building a company, and founders need to know this information. I do feel like that exists. And on the other hand, on the other side of that, there needs to be and also an understanding and awareness of what's happening with technology. How do you need to integrate emerging technology into what you're doing? Like easy, low hanging fruit AI. how are you integrating AI workflows into what you're doing? And it's still so new that I don't know if we have the body of knowledge yet to say this is the way forward, this is how you're supposed to do it, because it's like the wild west in AI right now. It's like everyone has their own theories, everyone that has their own processes for doing things, and it's not a cookie cutter experience either. So it's understanding, okay, how can I apply this technology in my industry? What will work, what won't work, and can this model be replicated? And I think that's where we are right now, is figuring out what models could we use for specific industries where AI technology is concerned, and how do we replicate that model across the board?
No, I get that and agree with that. We're being asked frequently because we do a ton of curriculum design and stuff for organizations to build in teaching how to use AI tools. And what we're running up against is, to your point, we're not at a place where we have a steady body of knowledge yet. Every single time we touch it, it's different. Like I
So
could
how are you
build you
doing
something today and then it would change next week.
it?
So
Right.
it's honestly a wild journey.
And so
So
what are some of the things that I'm just curious if we can just dive in a little bit more to that? What are some of the things that you're doing or you're seeing? How are you handling that challenge?
we are trying to approach it from a place of educating ability sets. So instead of teaching a specific tool or a process, we're teaching how do you prompt, what does it mean to prompt, how do you vet and verify the data that it then generates for you, making sure that you actually can speak to everything that it's pulling from. And keeping a backlog of that. So, like, let's say, like as an example, if you're having a founder look into their market and understand like what's their market reach, they're just gonna ask that question point blank to the AI. I've watched them do it 100 times already, and it will give something back. It will absolutely give you
Yep.
some sort
Every
of a
time.
response.
100%.
Absolutely. It's like a really, really overeager intern. It loves to give you answers, but it might not actually have the knowledge to generate the answers you need. So, what we're trying to do is teach people how to approach it from a place of questioning. Says your market reach is 2.3 million people, then dig into who that is and make sure that actually aligns with who you think your customer base is, and question it, and then make sure that you're prompting it from a place of like put it in the position to be looking in the right resources.
Yeah.
You can't just
Yeah.
ask a question, which a lot of people are treating it like Google, find me the closest restaurant. No, you have to actually give it like a frame of reference to work from. So it could be like, you are a business analyst in XYZ industry. Please verify the market reach for blah, blah, blah. Like you have to give it a pathway to go.
Yeah. And I think, yeah. And you hit the nail on the head. That framework is important. And I think that's where we start, Holly. I think you just answered the question. There is no body of knowledge that exists yet, but I think if we can begin with the framework just at the very baseline, how do we use this tool to our benefit, and how do we verify the information that is giving to us? Because a lot of people, they'll take the chat GPT, that's just one of them, but we have a whole host of tools now. They'll take it and they're gonna run with it. But no, you
You
gotta
got to
verify,
question it.
trust but verify, because it hallucinates and it'll make
It
up
makes
something.
things up. I mean, it is like a really, really overeager intern. It's like, I brought you
Yeah.
something. Here you go. And you're like, oh, wait, I asked for potato chips. That's a donut. Like, that's
Right.
not the same
Right.
thing, you know? So I feel like it's a really hard space right now to be educating within, because it's constantly evolving, constantly changing, and really we just need to be teaching behavior patterns around it. I think it's kind of the best we can do. So on that front, do you feel like AI is shifting our ability to close some of the wealth gap because we're opening up gateways with it?
Yeah, I do, but it's a caveat when used properly, because now that it's so mainstream, anyone can prompt, anyone can do everything that you're thinking about doing. So the challenge then becomes, what is your differentiator? Yes, it absolutely has the potential to close the wealth gap, but are you using the tool properly so that it spurs innovation within you? And I think that's what AI is good for. It can help you. It could serve as a thought partner It
Yes.
can't think for you, but it can serve as a thought partner. You can bounce ideas off of it, but ultimately you have to do the work. And I think a lot of people they're looking for this pill. You just pop it in your mouth, throw some water back, and boom, and all of a sudden, oh, I have this $1 million idea because I'm using AI. No, 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 no. That's not how it works. How can you integrate AI into what you're already thinking about or already doing? And that's how the wealth gap is going to close eventually. I think we have a long way to go because there's a lot of barriers. There's not we don't have equitable access to resources. So we got to start there before we even talk about bringing down or closing the wealth gap. Once we have equitable access to resources, then we can close the wealth gap. But to answer your question, AI can help with that.
Well, and to that point of equitable access to resources, the AI can't help if you can't get internet in your neighborhood.
Oh,
So
the most basic necessity.
there's pieces of that pie that we absolutely have not sorted out yet.
That's such a first world problem too, Holly. In the grand scheme of problems in the world, not having internet access is such a first world problem. There's so many people around the globe that just doesn't have access to internet, and here we are talking about, hey, you don't have. Yes, but for this country it is a basic necessity. It is.
For sure, for sure. And I do feel like keeping that perspective of what actually matters, because if you're building programs, if you're doing things that are truly creating impact, you have to be looking at that entire spectrum of needs, not just are we teaching a founder a baseline set of knowledge? You have to be looking at it from so many different vantage points, which I feel like that's something that we get a unique cross hatching of because we work with so many different organizations. I feel like you kind of have that same flavor of like you get to see many different organizations and how they're doing the work that they're doing. And sometimes it's not about understanding business theory. It's about making sure that they have food every week.
Yes.
And they might have a brilliant business idea, but they can't ever quite get to it
Hmm.
because they're so distracted by creating a life for themselves that keeps them sustained and living to it. So I feel like there's just so many pieces of programmatic thought that not everybody always digs into. Like we've built programs where dinner was a big piece of it because that might be the only whole meal that founder got that day.
Yeah, and so I think now we also have to question, we need support systems that meet entrepreneurs where they are geographically and also contextually. So traditional support often requires entrepreneurs to fit this premeditated mold of specific educational background, network connections, and things like that. So how do we connect those entrepreneurs to the resources they need? And that I'm just thinking about the earlier question that I answered, and we was talking about inequities in access to information. How do we make this information accessible to those people who may be single moms with this amazing idea and just doesn't have the wherewithal to bring it to fruition? How do we reach those people?
Well, and I feel like that's actually been one of my personal like driving forces behind some of our ideas is I want to do things that are accessible to those humans that can't always show up to an event, can't always grab a cup of coffee, can't like the way that we normally do business things, they may not have lives that align with that. They may have a brilliant business concept, but they can't ever get it into fruition because they can't play the game the same way.
Yeah.
So we've one of our big things is like creating resources that can meet the founder where it is because we know that a lot of the founders that have truly innovative ideas, those innovative concepts came from extreme moments in life. So if you can't foster an environment where they then have the opportunity to explore what that could look like and potentially find partners to work with or do things that further that concept, we're losing so much. We're leaving so much on the table when in reality it could look as simple as we need to not be hosting an in-person event for these humans because they can't get there, or it may be that we need to be going to their homes and doing something. I mean, like there's a lot of different ways that things can manifest, and I feel like we don't always look at that broad spectrum because we have a pre-prescribed concept of what does founder support look like.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I totally agree. I like that.
So on that end, like all of the data and all of the knowledge and stuff that we need to collect to be able to do the work that we do collectively. How do you have any thoughts on like how we could do a better job of collecting that data, accessing it, bringing those humans into the room to have the conversations?
Yeah, I don't have the answer, Holly. And this is something that I'm always thinking of. How do we bring those people? How do we give them a seat at the table? Because oftentimes they're
Yes.
left on the sidelines.
Yes.
And there's no right answer. That I don't have an answer, but I do think that there just needs to be a little bit more consideration when we're creating programs, like you said, when we are creating programs. That's what I was thinking. Programs. Jamilah, where's your head? We're creating programs and initiatives. How can we remove some of those barriers and keep these people in mind? I don't have an answer. I'm not saying it keeps me up at night, but I think about it a lot.
I mean, it keeps me going. It keeps me like constantly trying to think like what are some other things we can test? What are some things we can try?
Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna have to think about that some more and get back to you because I really
We
don't
just
have an
keep trying
answer.
things. Honestly, like we just keep throwing spaghetti at the wall and trying new things and asking. I think that's the biggest thing that we're heavily focused on is we just keep asking.
Yeah,
How
asking the
might, how can
question.
we?
Yeah, and I think also one of the things that's been difficult for us to do, from an organizational standpoint, and even working with our federal clients, is collecting data. Do you know how hard it is collecting data? I'm not even the best at giving data. You can offer me a free Amazon gift card and you're like, "Hey, will you just fill out this simple survey like Geico? That's my insurance company. Hey, how do we do today? Can you just rate me on a scale of 1 to 10?" I get the email and I'm like, "Oh, it's so easy. All I have to do is press the star." But I don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I right before we got on this call, I swiped on an email that was like, "How was your flight on Sunday?" You know, like, no, I don't want to. And it's literally just tap a button, and I still didn't want to do it.
Right. So again, it's okay. So if we think about that, so let's talk about that a little bit. If we think about data collection and how we collect data right now, because right now the way that we collect data is, hey, I'm gonna email you, and that's quick, easy. Is that the most effective way of doing that? Because we're talking about bringing people to the conversation that are otherwise maybe left out of the conversation or left away from the table. So is that the most effective way if we people who are in front of their computers all the time, yeah, we have families and we have lives, but if we can't even do it, how would we expect someone else who may not have a computer facing job, has this great idea, has to worry about feeding their family, how can we expect them to fill out a survey or give us data? So I think we just need to rethink, how are we collecting the data and how can we bring them to the conversation in a way that's accessible for them. You're gonna have me thinking, Holly. This is gonna send me down a rabbit hole.
I know this is one of those things. So one of the things that we've been playing with, and we're getting interesting results out of it, is trying to replace the idea of a survey with an AI conversation.
I like that.
That so it can actually you can speak to it, it speaks to you. It's not the same thing as having a human conversation. You know, I'm well aware of that, but we also have to like how can we do things at scale and actually get enough information to do things to move forward. And so we've been playing with this idea and we've been testing it heavily of can we create an AI like scripted-ish conversation where it's asking questions and you're just verbally responding to it like on your phone. It asks you a question, you just verbally talk to it and it's extracting the data and the pieces out of it, and we're getting really cool results out of that. I don't know what to do with it yet because mostly we're just playing like different ways to get people to share knowledge and share information.
Yeah.
But it's cool because we're getting much more of like the anecdotal things that you would get in a conversation versus what you're going to get in a survey. So in a survey, you might just click this, click
Right,
that.
right.
Like you're not going to give backstory, but people are giving backstory. Like you'll say, what's a barrier? I think one of the questions you ask, like, what's a barrier that you've faced trying to get funding for your business? And instead of that, they'll usually say something like no access or hard to get, or like they like two or three words
Yeah.
tops because they're like, I don't want to be doing this. So what they're doing when it's asking them and they can respond verbally is they're actually telling a story. And so we're getting much more anecdotal. I mean, granted, it is anecdotal data, but it's opening the pathway a little bit. And so I'm really curious what we can do with that and if other organizations are playing with that same idea because it's a little bit easier to access. It makes it a little bit more reachable. I don't know.
And that's a great, Holly, that is a great way to use AI. You just proved my point right there.
We're playing with it. We're trying.
You make a great point. That is that, yeah. I'm all for, I'm all for a good story. So any way to access stories to get context, because context matters. And I have to have context. I'm one of those people that have to have context to understand what you're even saying. You can't just tell me something and no context behind it. I'm like, what are we talking about here? So
Bring me in. I want to be in the story.
yeah, yeah. So for the simple fact that you all are doing that and that's how you're collecting data, because like I said, the way that we collect data right now, it is outdated. It's very archaic. It doesn't align with where technology is heading, and it just doesn't seem modern.
There's like a lot of lag between where we are and
Yeah.
how we're functioning. And it's
Yeah. Oh yeah.
because
You
we
put that in. Yes, that's the words. You took it right out of my mouth. That's what I was trying to say right there. Yes.
because we have like even when you're doing like census data, we've even taken away some of the human aspect of that, which I feel like that was one of the last remaining vestiges of having human conversations about data. And we've gotten rid of a lot of the census data taking process.
You mean when people knock on your doors?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like you actually
Wait.
had to have the conversation with a person. I had to look you in the eye and tell you I have 2.5 children.
Well, I didn't answer the door, so I'm like, I'm not answering the door for these people. Wait, I shouldn't say that. No, I would do it. I think I did it online. I wasn't answering the door, but I think I did it online. I think because it happens every 10 years.
Yes.
So it hasn't been, yeah, I would only have probably done that one time.
Well, and I do feel like, but to that point of like the world has progressed to a place where you wouldn't answer the door. So
Yeah.
how do we bridge that gap of like that was a human interaction, so you would get different data and people probably tell their data differently when it's person to person. And then we went completely to the other side of that spectrum where it's all like you did it online.
Hmm.
And now we're at a place where people don't want to do the online data entry either. So how do we bridge? It's a wild spot.
Yeah. So, hey, if you're listening, if one of your people are listening, that's a business idea right there.
But there's this great one. Let's test it. Let's market validate that one. I'm all in. All right. So I know that one of the places that you love to support is working with people to strengthen programs and connect with people and build communities. So as we're walking out of this conversation, what's one thing you want to leave laying in the room this is a way you can do a better job of building community in your community?
Yeah. So, are we walking out of the conversation already?
I'm telling you, it's fast.
What's happening here? Okay. Back to business. So, are we talking online? Are we talking online or within your local ecosystem? Because I feel like
Wherever
it's
you want to take
different.
that.
Okay. Gonna take the
Welcome if you
question.
want.
Yeah, gonna take the question both ways. So when one of the things that we see in local ecosystems, because working with federal clients, we get a very high level view, and so that means also viewing regional and local ecosystems, kind of how they operate and what type of programs they put into place. And the best ecosystems that are operating locally are really in tune with the needs of their community. So some of the needs in the community, they may not be main street that they are main street entrepreneurs, but they may not be high tech entrepreneurs. So working with who are funding these businesses, because Main Street entrepreneurships, they need an injection of capital too. So who are your community funds, your CDFIs? Who are those people? It's not just about VC funding. So how can one thing that I will leave you with is, if you're working locally or regionally, how can you bring different people, different stakeholders to the table that can serve your local entrepreneurs? So you need to have a conversation. We were just talking about this. How do you reach people locally? I feel like when you're local, you can actually have a conversation. You can actually go out to the businesses, especially if it's Main Street, go out to the businesses, see their problems, assess where they are. In addition to working with your maybe local SBDCs, or maybe you are an SBDC, but your universities, the tech transfer offices. So really building that capacity locally. What are the ESOs can you network with? Because the best ESOs that are working locally have partnerships with other ESOs. That's number one. Now we're talking digitally. When we talk about building community digitally, or building a digital ecosystem, sometimes that could be a little bit more broad. But one of the things we're trying to do at Established Network is, how can we bring all of our stakeholders under one umbrella? What are the unique needs that these groups have, and how can we tie solutions to the needs or the challenges of these groups, and how can we connect resources amongst people within our networks? Because if we're operating, we're doing this with Established Network, if we're operating nationally, then everyone has their own unique problems, but sometimes there's a common thread.
Yep.
And what we're trying to do, what we're actually doing and figuring out is, what is the common thread that these people have, and how can we be a solution? How can we be the threader? How can we sew these things together so that we're building something bigger than ourselves? We're building something that can actually advance the U.S. economy. And I'll leave you with that.
I love that, because that totally that completely aligns with how I view the work we do, and how we serve, and how can we do a better job of taking our position and using it as a way to create a better woven system and blanket that goes over everything.
Yes.
Because so much is siloed. And if we can just interweave them, and I think you and I are both in a unique position where we get to have that 30,000 foot view and see what different communities are doing, different communities of practice are bringing into the table. And not everybody gets that, because some people are very, very focused on their unique space. But we have that specific vantage point, and I love that, like, you've created a methodology for wanting to share that out and create pathways to have the conversations. So I'm really jazzed about your new project, and I'm all in on it.
Thank you, and thank you for supporting. And again, all of this I feel like it's one big experiment. Even if we think about it, ecosystem building in general is so new, Holly. In terms of industry, it's new, and there are some emerging leaders in the space like yourself and some other people who are really trying to figure it out and shape the industry. And I'd like to think Established is also one of those people as well. And so let's, we're trying to figure out, how can we be the plug? That's what we
How
say.
can we keep passing the knowledge back and forth and not hold it? Like, I feel like that's what's happened for the last 50 years, is people just hold it to themselves without realizing that that's what they're doing. That's not intentional. It's just natural. And the more we can open our arms and have those conversations together, the better we all get at doing this. Because 50 years ago, we didn't have a word for what this was. People did
Right.
it,
Yeah.
but there wasn't even a word for what it was.
Exactly. And so that's where we are now, and we're just shaping it. And this is really fun work, because we get to shape what's next. We can shape the industry.
Yes, it's really exciting on a daily basis, honestly. Like, I'm never bored, for sure. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an honor having you with us.
And thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate, again, fellowshipping with you and all the listeners out there.
Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to All Things Equal. If today's conversation helped you reflect on your own ESO journey, please subscribe and share with your team, your friends, and your colleagues. EQALL, the BSO for ESOs, exists to evolve how entrepreneurship support is designed and delivered. And part of how we're doing that is sharing the stories of the people out there on the front lines doing the work. That being said, we'd love to have you join the conversation or help showcase the work that you're doing. Please reach out and let's keep supercharging the people that help make entrepreneurship support possible.